The bulls are adamant that they would make it a magnificent 7 today, as the dip that we saw in the markets has been quickly bought into. You're watching Midcap Radar live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Hormas Patakia. With me, as always, is Vivek Iyer. Vivek, good afternoon. And the recovery has been very swift. And of course, there's been some recovery from the lows for the banking stocks as well.
That's right. Good afternoon, Hormas. Broader end of the markets, there's been quite a sharp recovery. Trading hour, we started at 11. That time, most of the indices were in the red, and we were calling, that it was on par for course, where you would actually see markets going ahead and seeing a bit of a sell-off or a bit of profit booking at higher levels. But there's been a very sharp intraday recovery. We have quite a lot lined up on the show. A very interesting discussion as well on the solar power manufacturing, industry and the components over there. So let's start off with the top headlines in today's show. Jittery trade as market is wary of US President Donald Trump's flip-flop on China tariffs and Fed's Jerome Powell. Key indices are off morning lows, have recovered intraday. IT, autos and realty gain, but consumer durables, PSUs drag. Midcaps relatively perform better.
Waaree Energies has surged on the back of its fourth quarter results. The revenue is up 36% from a year ago, while margins have also expanded by over 800 basis points.
Niva Bupa Health Insurance gains after Motilal Oswal initiates coverage on the stock with a buy rating and a target of 100 rupees a share, implying an upside of nearly 30% from Tuesday's closing levels.
AU Small Finance Bank CEO Sanjay Agrawal says that collections against microloans in Karnataka improved to 98% in March from 95% in January, giving hope that the worst of the microfinance stress may be behind.
IT is the top sectoral gainer today. HCL Technologies climbs despite a soft and mostly inline quarter on the back of strong deal wins and an all-time high pipeline. Expectations of easing tariff tensions also fuel a rally in IT stocks. Well, as we've been mentioning, there's been significant buying emerging from the lower levels. We did see a sell-off in the morning, but that's been quickly bought into. Have a look at some of the NBFC names. Look at names like LT Finance, that particular stock now trading at the day's highest point, a strong recovery over there. AB Capital, another stock from the NBFC pack, yesterday got an in-composite license. That particular stock up higher by almost 1.5% at the day's highest point. Look at a name like Tata Motors, that particular stock recovering very sharply. Even a name like Sona Comstar or Sonar BLW, that particular stock doing very well in this session. Hormas has once again gone to the wall. This is our special segment, Midcap Movers. Hormas will take us through the midcaps that are moving around in the session.
It's been a while since we had some losers on the screen, and today we do have some on the list, but we'll start off with the gainers nonetheless. As you can see, the dip that came in at around 11 o'clock, as Vivek was highlighting, got very swiftly bought into. And look at the movers here. Latent view around 9% higher among the top movers today. Niva Bupa has cooled off from the highs, but is still holding on to gains of around 6.5%. A positive brokerage initiation coming in on the stock today. Alembic Pharma is doing well for itself, as is Inox Wind, continuing to build on from yesterday's moves. There are a lot of earnings reactions. There are plenty of earnings awaited today, but there are enough and more stocks that are reacting to earnings. Waaree has now extended its gains to almost 20%. Vardhaman Special Steel is already in a 20% circuit. AU Small Finance Bank opened lower, but after some positive management commentary is now at the highest point of the day. And Havells too, seeing some bit of recovery from the lows, but still 3% lower despite some strong results. Among the other movers in today's session include the IT names after HCL Tech's results, which has rubbed off particularly strongly on the mid-cap IT names. Look at the Newgens, the Persistence and the Coforges, 5.5% to 7% higher in today's session. Stocks doing well on the back of very strong volumes in today's session include the likes of Eris Life. Motilal Oswal's doing well. M&M Finance is another result reaction, but is down on strong volumes, and SBFC is doing well for itself, past 100 rupees now, 3.5% higher on strong volumes. And lastly, stocks that are bucking the trend today. Blue Star, a high flyer in recent times, seeing some profit booking, as is Voltas, as is Crompton. So these consumer durable names seeing some bit of profit booking today, as is JB Chemicals at the lowest point of the day, 4.5% lower in today's session, Vivek.
Thank you so much, Hormas. And get back to your suite quickly, because we are welcoming Jay Thakur from ICICI Securities for a technical check on the market. I'm sure you'll pose a couple of questions to him. Jay, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, it does not appear as though the Nifty wants a breather. We saw a brief intraday dip, but once again, we are in the green.
Very good afternoon to you, Vivek, Hormaz. Well, see, I would say that overall the trend has definitely clearly shifted from down to up. Vivek, we have seen 6 straight days of positive close in Nifty, and today, if it closes, then positive again, then it would be 7 straight week. So far, we saw that it was more of BFSI which led the rally. Vivek, and definitely it contributes more than 40-45%, and which helped Nifty from to bounce back from 21,750 until say 24,200. But today what has happened is, I mean, with yesterday's reaction from the President Trump, as far as China is concerned, or probably the US Fed chairman is concerned, that has triggered the positive trend in the US markets, which is getting translated to the Asian markets as well. And finally we saw Nifty breaking out about 24,200 as well, because that was technically a clear resistance out there. Secondly, we had seen a good amount of resistance there. But then Bank Nifty has reacted negatively. So the Bank Nifty IT ratio, which had reached to say 1.6, okay, that was last 3 years higher end of the range. That clearly seems to be indicating that from here on, we would see that kind of short covering coming in the Nifty IT, because it's up by 4.5%. And we have maximum shorts out there in Nifty IT in the overall FNO basket, if you see, Vivek. So I think that now onwards, those stocks which have seen lot much of shorts, we'll see further short covering, which can fuel the Nifty move from 24,200 to say 24,800. So banking has played its role. Now it's other sectors wherein we have seen good amount of shorts will play their role for to make Nifty jump by another say 400 to 500 points from here on. Now the base seems to have shifted to 23,800, 24,000 range, which was earlier 23,500. So base has shifted higher, and I think this sectoral churning will happen, and Nifty will eventually continue moving higher. That's the trend set clearly. Now since IT, as I said, has got a lot amount of shorts, so I have a first recommendation from the IT pack. I mean, definitely Tech Mahindra has got good amount of shorts. So Tech Mahindra at current levels of 1435 can see the levels of 1480, 1500. One can place a stop loss below 1400 and go long on Tech Mahindra. And second, I think that the pharma stocks will also see some short covering. So the second buy recommendation of mine is on Lupin, Vivek. So Lupin is trading around the levels of 2088. It can inch towards the levels of 2200. One can place a stop loss of 2040 and go long on this. And my final pick would be on Ramco Cements, because overall cement pack I think is has had a good amount of long build-up, and Ramco is one of them, which is clearly showing good uptrend. So one can buy at these levels of 977. One can buy on dips as well towards say 960, placing a stop loss below 940 and eventually targeting 1040 to 1080. So cement, because they are long build-up, pharma and IT based on short covering is what I'm expecting in market.
All right, Jay, thank you so much for sparing time and joining us this afternoon with your views on the index and on specific stocks as well. Take a short break. On the other side, we'll be joined by Nikhil Nigania of Bernstein to discuss the US tariffs on Southeast Asian solar imports. Stay tuned, back on the other side.
Welcome back to Midcap Radar. Well, two stocks that have been in focus in the last couple of trading sessions have actually been Waaree Energies. Remember, the company also delivered its results, but there's also been a bigger story that's played out in the last couple of days. The other stock that we're discussing is actually Premier Energies. Nikhil, thank you so much for joining us. In the last couple of days, what we've actually done is we've highlighted the fact that there have been significant duties that are proposed to be imposed by the USA on Southeast Asian countries like Cambodia, Vietnam. You've been tracking this sector quite closely for quite some time, and in fact, you've also looked at quite a few global names. First up, what have you made of the likely imposition of the tariffs? In some cases, as high as 3,400%. It's almost 35, 36 times tariffs. What does this mean for the US market? What does this mean for Indian exporters like Waaree and Premier? Could you quantify and qualify this particular development for us?
Sure, Vivek. Thanks for having me on the show. So see, this development, if you see, it's been in the works for almost a year now. So what happens, US has a demand of solar modules of about 50 gigawatts a year. Right now, on the module manufacturing side, they have finally reached almost sufficient capacity. but till a year back, they did not even have that. On the cell manufacturing side, they still have about 12, 13 gigawatts equivalent of capacity against this big demand that they have. So they are heavily dependent on imports. And from imports, they were importing not from China, but primarily 70-80% of their imports were coming from Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia. And in most of these markets, it was usually Chinese companies who had set up base in those regions to export into the US market. Now, due to petitions filed by First Solar and other US-based companies, US government is investigating whether anti-dumping duty needs to be imposed on these geographies. And yesterday, the judgment moved forward, and the duties announced, as you said, were, very large. So on Cambodia, almost 3,400, 3,500% duties, and even on other of these three countries, Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia as well. So massive duties coming on them. So who gains from this? So the consequence of this, one is local manufacturing in US will rise substantially. There is already a lot of under construction solar cell and module manufacturing capacity in the US. And in the interim, while that local capacity comes up, markets outside these four countries, which is primarily Indonesia, Turkey, South Korea, and even India, to some extent, gains as they will see rise in export of solar cells into the US market. And to give you a sense of prices, so solar modules in US sell between 25 to 30 cents a watt, whereas the Chinese modules globally sell at 9 cents a watt. So there is a big price arbitrage in exporting into the US market.
Nikhil, good afternoon. Thank you for joining in. Be that as it may, I have a counter question for you. This might be beneficial in a way for these Indian companies. They may not have a significant export exposure in general, but the Trump administration itself is not very green energy friendly, be it solar, be it wind. They want to abandon every form of non-conventional energy and go back to conventional. So how does all of this fall into place in the long term? Because this uncertainty, this regulatory uncertainty will continue to persist.
So you're right. So in terms of focus from the US government side, they are more focused on gas turbine, gas-based generation rather than wind. But solar will continue to be a decent part of their incremental generation capacity. It's faster to commission, whereas gas turbines, there's a waiting time of 3 years in the US. So they will have to depend on solar generation. So almost 50 gigawatt a year. We don't see that number coming down a lot. So that demand in the US will be there. But the export opportunity, which is arising due to these events, we think will be a 1 to 2 year opportunity at best, because local supply in US will come in the meantime. So to your question, 50 gigawatt solar, we don't see that coming down in the US.
Got it. So Nikhil, 50 gigawatt is the current opportunity size. Now, currently, what is it that Indian companies like Waaree, Premier, some of the other unlisted names too, what is it that they are able to garner? Post imposition of duties, do they become more competitive? And what kind of volume gains can the Indian companies actually go ahead and stand to benefit in case duties come into fruition?
Yeah, so for a company like Waaree, 20% of their business comes from exports and from a revenue standpoint. So we don't see that number of 20% change a lot. But yeah, the margins they make on that could be even better than what we envisaged due to this lower competition now coming from the Southeast Asian players. And in the overall basket for US, India would be, I think, about 5 to 10% of their imports on the solar side, module plus cell, would be from India.
So in that case, Nikhil, how does this entire Indian landscape shape up now? What do you foresee for companies like Premier and Waaree? Is there a preference that you have among the two, and if so, why?
Yeah. See, near-term earnings for both these players and the space in general will be very strong. In fact, Waaree reported today the numbers were even stronger than what we envisaged, and their guidance for FY26 is almost 30% above consensus, not just us. So numbers near-term continue to be super strong for the space. But in the long term, the challenge we see is that this export story dies down in a year or two. And on the domestic market side also, there is a supply glut which comes as many players are setting up solar cell and module capacity, including much larger players like Reliance Industries, who in their annual report guided on 20 gigawatts of solar equipment manufacturing capacity by FY27.
Understood
So
that.
strong near-term but long-term challenges. Yeah.
Nikhil, so strong near-term earnings is something that you expect the sector will enjoy. You've said that there could be intensified competition coming in as far as domestic manufacturing is concerned. So overall, how would you play this particular sector? We understand that you're quite cautious when it comes to both Wari as well as Premier. Would you change your stance in the near term, especially Wari has guided for almost doubling, and if you look at the upper end of the guided band, EBITDA, they're looking to more than double as far as FY26 is concerned. Would you turn more positive on both of these names?
See, their earnings, as I said, will be better than what we envisaged for FY26 and maybe FY27 also to some extent. But still, a long-term view is intact. I mean, any company I speak to on the renewable front is adding cell module manufacturing capacity. And there is only so much India can absorb of it. So beyond the 2 years, FY26-27 is where I see the challenge for this industry in general and where I see a supply glut. So hence, from a long-term perspective, we continue to be negative. And we believe if one has to play this theme, and if Wari and Premier valuations are correct where they are, there could be other proxies to play. So in our coverage, for example, we do have Renew Power, not listed in India, listed on NASDAQ. But the whole company is available for $2.5 billion, half the price of Premier, despite having more manufacturing capacity than them, despite having massive power generation capacity in renewables. And similarly, another company we don't cover, Tata Power. They have 2x the cell manufacturing capacity of Premier, and the whole company is available at something close to Wari right now.
All right, Nikhil, thank you so much for sparing time and joining us today, and hope to have you more often on this forum. That was Nikhil Nigania of Bernstein on this duty imposition by the US and the prospects for stocks like Premier and Wari. By the way, Wari is now up 18%. Building on to its earnings reaction. Premier Energies too, carrying on from where it left off in yesterday's trade, another 5.5% higher there as well. By the way, the Nifty is now up 100 points, recovering from the lows of the day. Take a short break, more on the markets and specific stocks on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. 120 points higher now on the Nifty, continuing to recover from the lows of the day. What's at the highest point of the day is Persistent Systems, 6% higher now on the stock. Tech Mahindra too, ahead of its results, is up 4.5% as well. But one earnings reaction is Vardhman Special Steels. That is up in a 20% upper circuit now. And despite reporting a subdued fourth quarter, but announced a 2,000 crore capex plan. Nigel is here to tell us more on that. Nigel.
Well, that's right. Vardhman Special Steel, that stock is up close to 20%. Remember, the stock saw a sharp correction from the recent peak. So there are two pieces of news out here. One is on results, which are not exciting. So let's run you through that. Revenues were a little bit lower. EBITDA number was much lower. It came in sub 40 crores. That compares with a number of close to around 57 crores. Margins came down to single digits and profitability as well took a hit. Even if you look at the unit economics, you had volumes that were up marginally, only around 3%. But the EBITDA per ton came down from around 10,000 rupees per ton all the way to around 7,000 rupees per ton. So the numbers, not exciting. Then why is the stock up 20%? The reason is they announced setting up a greenfield steel plant with a capacity of around 500,000 tons of billet production. And they said the total capex will be to the tune of around 2,000 crores. They said this will be funded by internal accruals, via capex, as well as some equity. Now, the street will be wondering about how they're going to do this, because remember, they have a big Japanese investor there, that has close to around 11% stake in the company. So will they participate in that equity issuance if they look to raise money via equity? Well, that seems to be one factor at play. This capacity, though, they say that will be commissioned in 2029, 2030. So results not very, very exciting. But on the capex, the street likes it very much. Takes the stock up to 20% upper circuit. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Nigel. Vardhman Special Steels locked at the upper circuit today. Well, moving on, AU Small Finance Bank shares rally on the back of their Q4 earnings. We caught up with AU Small Finance Bank CEO Sanjay Agarwal. He says collections against microloans in Karnataka improved to 98% in March from 95% in January, giving hope that the worst of the microfinance stress may be behind. Let's listen in.
From last 2 months, things have changed dramatically, in my opinion, and I would give credit to the regulator and, of course, the government itself that the focus on growth is back. This year, our credit cost will help us more to build our ROA. So I expect a reduction in credit cost this year, and I'm saying because we are well prepared. So I would say March has given us hope because in March month, the OD recovery there is around 98%, right, which was around 95 in the January month. And I'm not seeing many noises from that market now. So, and that is only a 10% of our book. So even that we have counted that book in our current year planning, right? So I don't think Karnataka would play a spoil sport for us this year.
Well, the recovery playing out in the market is also synonymous with the recovery that we are seeing in the Dow futures. They were at now from 400 points. They have now extended their gains to 600 points now. So extending their gains from where they left off overnight. 600 points higher on the Dow futures. The European markets have also opened higher with very healthy gains. So all around, it bodes well for the Nifty, poised for a 7th straight day of gains. Right now 24,300 is where the index currently stands at, nearing the highest point of the day, that resistance point of around 24,350. Tomorrow also, of course, is going to be the expiry. So there are a lot of factors that you will have to keep an eye out for. Among some of the stocks that are moving, we highlighted Midcap IT, but on the losing side, there are stocks like Muthoot Finance that have given up some gains today, 3.5% lower on that stock. Ola Electric also is down 3%. Havells continues to languish near the lowest point of the day as well, so 3% lower on Havells as well. We keep an eye out on all of these names. But with that, we call time on this edition of Midcap Radar. From Vivek, me and the team that put this show together, thank you so much for watching. Your stocks on the other side.